whether they win the Big Ten championship or not, Oregon is going to be in the college football playoff. But what they did yesterday, just absolutely swinging for the fence and making pretty good contact, Dan Lanning is going to win a national championship at Oregon. I don't know if it's this year. They're going to have a real good shot this year. But whether it's this year, whether it's in 3 years, they're going to win a national championship under Dan Lanning, and I feel pretty confident saying that. Really quickly, if you're watching live, or if you're watching as a one-off video, make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. All right, college football, nothing but college football. Transfer portal about to open up. National Signing Day was yesterday. There's a lot going on. We want y'all dialed in. You're a college football sicko. A lot of your friends, if their team's not playing anymore after the regular season, they've kind of taken a step back. Not us. Not us. This is where we separate from the pack. Best way to separate from the pack, being dialed in. Best way to be dialed in, subscribing right here to the On3 YouTube channel. So if you don't really keep up with recruiting, let me give you a quick snapshot of what Oregon did yesterday. They did not finish with the top class in America. You don't have to finish with the top class in America to be the best team in America. However, Oregon right now has a top 3 class. And a big reason why that is, they had a wide receiver of a 5-star caliber in Dallas Wilson, committed to them for right around 2 years. There's some smoke brewing starting the night before signing day into signing day morning that, hey, maybe, just maybe Florida, the hometown team for Dallas Wilson, is going to try to take him away from the Ducks. Some smoke happens. Smoke settles. They keep Dallas Wilson. He puts pen to paper. Okay, so you start the day off with the win, keeping one of your guys committed. Okay, awesome. And then Dan Lanning and his staff probably, got a little stretch going, went to the kitchen, pulled out a spatula, actually pulled out 2 spatulas, ended up flipping 2 5-stars. One, a quarterback commit from Cal, Jarian Sagavatelli, and the other, a commit to Ohio State in Naeem Offord, who's a cornerback. And the thought was maybe he would flip to Auburn, but then they made a surge at the end there and flipped him from Ohio State, not to Auburn, but to Oregon. This is another example of why I believe Dan Lanning will win a national championship. This is exactly why. Because you talk about the Sabins and the Kirbys and guys of that caliber, and they do things a certain way. Obviously, their process is something else we'll get to, but like a big reason why Georgia and Alabama have won national titles, because they had the better players. And how do they get the better players? They prioritized recruiting. Dan Lanning, chilling out there in the West Coast in a little town in the state of Oregon called Eugene, is creating a power right now, and they are a power on the recruiting trail. And when he didn't take the Alabama job, whether he was offered it or not, it sounds like he shut it down before it was even a conversation. Dan Lanning deciding to stay at Oregon for the way that modern college football is trending was the best decision he could have made. Why? Because there's so much made about resources and brand and infrastructure. Like I've said this before, I think where you are geographically has never mattered less in modern college football. Like, you know what people see is the TV. When they turn on the TV, especially this generation of recruits, they see the Oregon O, they see the flashy uniforms, and then also it doesn't hurt. Like, let's be real here. The resources at an NIL level is massive. Like, you read stories about Phil Knight and what he plays a factor in with some of these guys. Like, it sounds like with Naeem Offord, he was pretty involved in that whole recruitment. He was pretty involved in that flip. Like, they have the resources to go and acquire top talent. And if that bothers you, like, I'm sorry, but I hope your team is bothered by it enough to go and pony up as well. Say, well, JD, we don't have the resources. I don't know. Well, you're going to get beat by the teams that do. Like, that's just that's the way this whole thing shakes out, man. Like, if you don't have the resources to go recruit how you want to recruit, you're going to get beat. Dan Lanning is not playing backseat to anybody, especially on the talent acquisition side. Now, going back to what I just said, they do national title things, does Oregon. I feel that way. It's one thing to win a national championship, and to win a national championship is really freaking hard. It gets harder with the new college football playoff. You got to win 3, maybe 4 games. But what you can control is your process and how you approach it. And we mentioned recruiting. Let's dial that in a little bit more. In the new era of college football, it is going to be extremely important in the playoff model, in those 3 to 4 game runs, to have a quarterback to make the difference. Because when you get to the college football playoff, in round 2, potentially, you're going to play a roster talent that is on the same plane as you. Maybe not as good, but probably same plane as you from a talent perspective. So who makes the difference when those roster talents maybe equal each other out? The quarterback. And again, Oregon has Dante Moore in that room, have Dylan Gabriel in the room right now, obviously going to the NFL next year. Dan Lanning says, you know what? Dante Moore and 1 5-star, that's not enough. I got to go get Jarian Sagavatelli from Cal. They flip him. The future of Oregon quarterbacking is very, very bright. They are in good position for a very, very long time. That is key. You have a quarterback, you have a chance. You have a quarterback, you have a chance to win a national championship, is a better way to say it. In addition to that, they're going to be elite in the trenches. You got to have big human beings up front. We talked to Dan Lanning, our first year on this show at On 3, and we asked him point blank, like, hey, it seems like you seem to, build through the trenches first. Like, you build your roster inside out. And he just sort of took a second and paused, and he's like, well, it's no secret. Like, the game's won up front. And it's one thing to say that. It's another to recruit like that and use the portal like that. Like, not only at the high school recruiting level does Oregon kill it, you look at what they have up front from a Jordan Burch to a Derek Harmon. Like, they don't miss in the portal at premium spots, whether it be their evals, whether it be the relationships. Like, Oregon does not miss in the portal. That's huge. And they don't miss up front in the portal, I think is probably the more finer point to put to it. So if you have the ingredients up front on the line of scrimmage, offensively and defensively, you have a quarterback, and you have a head coach to make it all go together, and you have a funnel when it comes to the recruiting side of things to go and knock it out of the park every single signing day, you're going to be in good position. Like, you do national title things enough that Oregon is doing, again, from what I can tell, it's a matter of time before you win a national championship. That's just the way that it feels to me, man. Now, it's great to have talent. It's great to have a quarterback. All those things, non-negotiables, to get you in the door. But the separation for me with Dan Lanning from that Kirby Smart tree, from that Nick Saban tree, you get glimpses into the house, as Dan Lanning would say, of how they operate. And we've seen enough small glimpses to, I think, be able to put a somewhat reasonable picture together of how that Oregon program operates. Competitively, I believe that they are made of the right stuff. Now, again, some of this you can never know because we're not actually inside that building in Eugene. But the way that they approach things, their mantras, they're saying the everybody or ducks versus them, or like their whole thing with FIBU, like, they are worried about Oregon and only Oregon. Let me say this, successful people, yes, they're obsessive, they're intense, they're all those things. They don't worry about other people. Like, successful people, successful college football programs, they worry about maximizing what they have internally, and then when they go play somebody else, they trust what they've done internally. And they're not worried about what Alabama or Georgia or USC or whoever has done. Like, they're like, we have done everything we can do to be successful relative to the prompt. We feel good. We feel good. A finer way to say that is process-oriented. Dan Lanning is process-oriented. They're not opponent-centric. And so that sounds simple, but I think philosophically that is ultimately a massive separator, massive differentiator for Oregon to pair that with their talent, with their roster, with their quarterbacking. Like, they're going to be in a really, really competitive spot here for years to come. And so, again, I don't know if it's this year. If you're an Oregon fan, you hope it's this year. It's been a fun ride, but, like, gosh dang, I think over the course of the next 3 years, I'd be wildly surprised if Dan Lanning did not have a national title back in Eugene, because they do the right things over the certain period of time. You do the right things enough, national title things at a high level enough, at some point in time you get results. Hasn't happened yet. I believe they'll win the Big Ten this upcoming Saturday. We'll see what happens in the playoff. But Oregon is swinging. They are connecting. They made a splash again on National Signing Day. Oregon's not going anywhere, and Dan Lanning is that dude for a long time when it comes to the college football landscape. So a quick prize pick square for you. Dylan Gabriel, his number is set to 1.5 passing touchdowns against Penn State. I think that the way that Oregon operates offensively, it may not be a bunch of deep vertical shots, but I could see them throw in for more than that in the red zone. So we'll take the more there. Code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups, gets you $50 in promo funds. They see y'all using that code too, so we appreciate y'all using that code and making us look good, making the whole operation look good as well.